of BBC Two's biography, friends and colleagues recall the turbulent career of François Truffaut.
Moteur!
Allons!
Formula 1 deuxième, 1 troisième, 1 cinquième, 7e.
Coupé!
François Truffaut became the golden boy of international cinema on the strength of his first 3 films. No director's career ever got off to a better start. But, unknown to him, personal and professional turmoil lay just around the corner.
Sortez la voiture rouge, disparaissez! Attention, voiture!
In May 1964, François Truffaut made a return visit to the Cannes Film Festival, where he had triumphed 5 years earlier by winning the Best Director prize for his debut movie, The 400 Blows. He was accompanied by the cast of his new film, Silken Skin, which was due to be premiered in front of that year's jury. Those around him were expecting more accolades, but Truffaut was about to experience a dramatic fall from grace.
Marcel Berber, qui était aussi le compagnon du carrosse depuis sa création, le directeur de production, le producteur exécutif des films de François, était à ce festival de Cannes où La peau douce a été présentée. Et il me racontait toujours, la veille, tout le monde lui parlait dans les rues, les gens traversaient la rue pour lui dire « Et quels sont les projets de François Truffaut ? Et qu'est-ce que vous préparez ?» Et puis il y a eu la projection, et le lendemain, les gens changeaient de trottoir pour ne pas lui parler.
Filmgoers around the world agreed with the verdict of the Cannes jurors, and Silken Skin duly became Truffaut's first and biggest flop.
Au revoir, mademoiselle.
Au revoir, monsieur. Au revoir, madame.
What those who criticise the film may not have realised, however, is just how personal and heartfelt it actually was.
Ah, dis donc, Michel et Odile vont passer ce soir. J'avais pensé que tu serais fatigué, je voulais choisir un autre jour, mais c'était impossible. Tu sais qu'ils vont partir pour le Japon?
The story of a married writer who has a tortured affair with an air hostess. Silken Skin is, in fact, a thinly disguised account of Truffaut's own affair with the actress Liliane David.
C'est parce que c'était très autobiographique qu'il a éprouvé le besoin de vieillir le personnage masculin. C'est pour ça qu'il a pris un acteur loin de lui, qui est Jean Dassailly, et avec lequel il n'avait pas vraiment de sympathie ni d'affinité. Parce qu'il avait peur que ça soit trop évident, quoi. C'était sa vie qu'il était en train de raconter, puisqu'il a même tourné les scènes avec l'actrice qui joue le rôle de sa femme dans son propre appartement qu'il habitait avec sa femme.
Nous nous sommes quittés, pas divorcés vraiment, mais nous nous sommes quittés après le tournage de La peau douce. Et on voit très bien, d'ailleurs, quand on voit les films, on voit très bien qu'il y a dans La peau douce quelque chose qui ne va plus dans le couple. Et ce film était un petit peu un reflet d'un malaise entre nous.
Tu dors? Tu dors? Méchant.
François voulait juste qu'on se sépare, mais il ne voulait pas divorcer. Et moi, j'ai voulu divorcer comme un pari stupide, en disant, il va voir comme c'est grave, je vais aller jusqu'au divorce, il va dire non, 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 ne fais pas ça. Mais si, il m'a laissé faire. Et voilà, on a divorcé. Mais on est resté, je dois dire qu'il y a eu probablement 1 ou 2 années un peu difficile, probablement pour tous les deux, parce qu'on avait l'un et l'autre beaucoup de tendresse pour l'autre.
Personal significance aside, Silken Skin is mainly notable for being the first Truffaut film to bear the imprint of a director he revered, Alfred Hitchcock. Even the greatest admirers of Truffaut's films aren't convinced that Hitchcock's influence on them was always for the good.
Le récit hitchcockien, c'est remarquablement intelligent, très efficace et tout ça. Alors, l'assimiler avec une thématique qui est quand même différente, c'est pas la même chose. Il y en a une dans La peau douce qui est très caractéristique. C'est la réception des critiques dans la ville de province. Je crois que c'est à Reims. Et c'est exactement tourné comme la scène où Alicia Huberman arrive chez les espions dans Notorious.
Miss Huberman, may I present Eric Matisse? How do you do?
How do you do?
William Rossman.
How do you do?
Very honored.
Monsieur Bontemps, qui dirige la Maison de la Culture, et Madame Bontemps, son épouse.
C'est exactement tourné de la même manière. Et à mon avis, il a eu tort.
Et Clément.
Alors je veux dire que l'utilisation de l'effet était un peu trop importante par rapport à ce qui était raconté. Autant ça fonctionnait quand une fille arrive au milieu d'espions, autant quand quelqu'un arrive au milieu de critiques de province, c'est quand même moins angoissant.
Truffaut's involvement with Hitchcock was not confined to imitating him. Forced to wait for 2 years before he could raise the money to make another film after the poor reception of Silk and Skin, he reverted to his original role as a film critic and produced a classic work on Hitchcock and his movies.
In the scene outside the schoolhouse,
dans la scène en dehors de l'école,
where the girl sits and waits,
où la fille
and behind her the crows are gathering.
Les corbeaux s'assemblent.
Aided by his American interpreter Helen Scott, Truffaut interviewed Hitchcock at length during several trips to America.
Now creep out, and when I tell you to run, you run.
He then spent 3 years editing the tapes down and taking hundreds of still photographs, frame by frame, from Hitchcock's movies to illustrate the text. The resulting work had a huge effect on how the British director was perceived.
And I stay with them, I don't cut, I don't do anything.
Et je reste avec eux.
In 1965, when Hitchcock's Torn Curtain was about to come out, I met a senior editor at Time magazine, and they were talking about it, and he was talking about What's in the Air. And I said, why don't you do a cover story on Hitchcock? This is his 50th film, one of the greatest filmmakers in the world. And he looked at me aghast and said, Hitchcock, subject, cover of Time magazine? You can't be serious. A year later, of course, Time had changed its attitude to him entirely. And this was largely due to Truffaut's book. That was the beginning, I think, of Hitchcock's present preeminent reputation.
Hitchcock's hold on Truffaut was still strong by the time he got round to making his next film, Fahrenheit 451. Based on a celebrated novel by science fiction writer Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451 is the only Truffaut picture made in English. It is set in a future where books are banned and firemen start fires instead of putting them out.
J'aurais moi-même été très étonné si on m'avait dit vous ferez un film de science-fiction d'après un livre de Bradbury. D'ailleurs, je n'avais rien lu de Bradbury. Seulement, il s'est trouvé que dans une conversation avec un homme qui est mort maintenant, Raoul Lévy, il m'a raconté plusieurs livres de science-fiction pour me prouver que c'était intéressant et que j'avais tort de dédaigner la science-fiction. Et le récit qu'il m'a fait de Fahrenheit m'a enthousiasmé, probablement parce qu'il s'agissait d'une histoire de livre et que j'avais envie de faire un film sur les livres. Enfin, ça, je tournais un peu autour de ça.
Made in England for financial reasons, the film had a mostly British cast, including Julie Christie, and an all-British crew led by lighting cameraman Nick Rogue, later to become a world-ranking director in his own right.
Tell me, that number you all wear, what's it mean?
Oh, Fahrenheit 451.
Why 451 rather than 813 or 121?
Fahrenheit 451 is the temperature at which book paper catches fire and starts to burn.
How could one possibly know what this strange, weird thing was going to be? And it's still very strange. And some people don't like it. I think it's a terribly good film. It's very successful as a result of François, Ray Bradbury, and Nick, because I think Nick caught it exactly what he wanted visually.
Although he enjoyed working with most of the actors who appeared in the film and with the British technicians who made it, Truffaut had a difficult time shooting Fahrenheit. He wasn't getting on with the lead actor, Oscar Werner, whose career Truffaut had helped to launch by giving him a big role in one of his earlier films, Jules et Jim.
Oscar owed a lot to François, and he agreed to do the movie. When we came to shoot a scene where the woman's house is being burned, he said, "Oh, no, no, I won't have anything to do with flames. I can't be in a room with flames." François said, "But what do you mean, Oscar? I mean, you're playing a fireman. You must have known that we were going to have flame." "No, I will not be on the set with flame." So we had doubles and God knows what.
Fahrenheit 451 did good business around the world, as did later movies such as Stolen Kisses and The Bride Wore Black. Surprisingly, perhaps, commercial success meant a great deal to Truffaut. Far more, in fact, than whether or not a particular film found favour with the critics.
He tended to speak about his films in the way that American filmmakers do. You know, you speak to someone like Billy Wilder, or you speak to someone like Alfred Hitchcock, and you say how much you admire a film. They say, "Oh, no, no, that's not one of my best films." And you realize it's because it's not a film that made money. Well, Truffaut, almost uniquely in my experience in the context of French cinema, spoke about his films like that.
Lui, l'argent, ça l'intéressait parce qu'il aimait vivre confortablement. Il avait finalement acquis au fil des ans des goûts, je ne dirais pas bourgeois, mais il aimait bien une vie normale, comme tous les Français, comme ses spectateurs. Du point de vue politique, il était complètement contradictoire. Il votait jamais et il s'intéressait à la politique de façon bizarre. Il était monarchiste, il me disait qu'il était monarchiste de gauche. Et alors il avait invité par exemple à voter Mitterrand parce qu'il trouvait qu'il avait un bon physique de roi.
Despite his conservative political instincts, Truffaut hated repressive government and fought against it on more than one occasion. One such moment occurred in February 1968 when Truffaut helped to organise a wave of demonstrations in support of Henri Langlois, director of France's National Film Museum, the Cinémathèque. Langlois, a hero to French film lovers, had been dismissed from his post by President de Gaulle, who regarded him as a subversive influence. Author Gilbert Adair was living in Paris at the time and got caught up in the events that followed.
They ousted Langlois and appointed a complete nonentity in his place. And this became a great sort of rallying point, not only for film buffs, but I think for lots of young people, students and so on. And in fact, it's often spoken of as the harbinger of what was to happen in May 1968, the famous événement, which almost brought the government down. There were lots of marches, protestations. There were also a number of quite violent confrontations between these people and the police, and Truffaut himself, in fact, was beaten up by the police, was hit over the head with a truncheon. The Langlois affair was the high point of Truffaut's political life, and I remember myself being at the Cinémathèque when it reopened, and one of the very first films to be screened